Hey everybody, this is Thank You, happy to be here. Once again, testing out another operating system. This time what I've got here is Maple OS, Maple Linux. Let me pull up the Distro Watch website. So this is Maple Linux is what it's called. And I have changed the background. For some reason, the background was not this image that you're seeing on the Distro Watch website. It was actually a picture of a beach. But I just thought that looked a little off. I know they have beaches in Canada, obviously. I have lived in states that border Canada for almost my entire life. And I've vacationed up in Canada. I realized that there's beaches there, but I don't know why it just didn't fit my feeling of when I downloaded it and I thought, oh, I'm installing Canadian Linux. So anyway, I changed the background to just this, I guess like a default Debian background that was it was already an image that was there in the files. I just pulled it up and said, set this as the background instead. So this is my background. But again, if we go back to the website, they show it as a bunch of clouds. Mine was a beach. But let's read up a little bit on what it says about Maple Linux. So it does say that it's a desktop Linux based on Debian, Debian's stable branch. And it says here it's featuring the Cinnamon desktop, although I'm pretty positive I have it set up for the XFCE desktop. Maybe not. I'll have to take a look, but I do have the XFCE terminal installed. So maybe it wasn't. Maybe I do have it set up for what did I say it was using here again? Cinnamon, because I had to install the XFCE terminal in order to get my transparencies right. So let me see if I pull up this terminal, it's just got a white background, and I didn't like that, and I couldn't really see a way to make any changes to it. But if I go into, it's probably under accessories, and it's not administration. Yeah, XFCE terminal. It's weird that the settings are in a different location, but bam, as you can see here, it is transparent. But it still works, so I can go ahead and type in like fast fetch, and there we go. There's my system information along with some information about the actual operating system itself, and it is transparent. If I move this around, you can see it doesn't make any changes to the background, but you can still see the background through the window, which I love. So yeah, it's based on Debian. Which means within the terminal you just type in your standard Debian commands, your what is it, like apt get, apt install, that kind of thing. What I was able to get installed on here so far, I do have Kdenlive installed. Obviously I have OBS installed. That's how I'm able to record this video. So I will try, once I have this recorded, I will try editing it down in Kdenlive and then rendering it in Kdenlive before I upload it to YouTube. But let's check it out. I also have my favorite game to install. So it did come with a bunch of other games installed apparently. Like I didn't install any of these except for Kpatience. I install Kpatience on every system because it's just my preferred solitaire game. And then of course I picked Klondike as the specific solitaire game that I like to play. It's already configured to draw 3 cards at a time. Klondike through Kpatience, I don't know, there must be a way to maybe change difficulties. I haven't tried it myself, but just the default setting, I don't know if I've successfully won a game of Kpatience without using that solver that you can see right down here in the bottom left corner, because the way it deals these cards, I mean, it deals them, it seems like in a specific way that if you do not work with the deck in a really specific manner, like which cards you're gonna put down, you will quickly run into a situation where the game isn't winnable. So far it keeps telling me the game's winnable, but you'll see it change if you download this game. So far it hasn't done anything, but if you download this game and then you make a move that it doesn't like, which I seem to do frequently. I don't know how. Usually I don't even get that far. I can't even get through the deck before it tells me like, hey, you've made a move that makes this unwinnable. Yeah, so far it hasn't done it. So bad example, but yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've just been like flipping these cards around the screen, and before you know it, I've made a move that it didn't like, and I hadn't even like barely touched this deck up here, but for whatever reason, I guess I hit a lucky streak there. But yeah, so I got OBS Studio installed. Obviously, I did install. Let's click on my little maple leaf here. I did install. Or maybe I haven't installed it yet. So it doesn't look like Kdenlive has been installed just yet. Oh, maybe I was saving that for this video. So I don't know why I clicked out of there. I can go ahead and go into Synaptec. And this version of Linux, this version of Linux, it seems to be kind of more secure than what I'm used to. But we're back in Synaptec. So that's the package manager that I believe was pre-installed in this version of Linux. And you know, I like Synaptec. It's not really like eye-catchy. Obviously, you don't see any icons or anything here. It's just kind of a list. But it's just been my experience that when I install packages, when I install software, programs through Synaptec, I don't know why maybe I'm just lucky, but it seems like they always just seem to work. That I don't have to like download something, find out it doesn't work, and then go through the trouble of having to like make changes in the settings or what have you to get it to work, or uninstall that version and try installing a different version, or just scrapping that application entirely and trying to find an application that will work. And again, it could just be me being lucky, but I've just noticed this with the versions of Linux that I've installed that utilize Synaptec as the package manager, that it just seems to work. So I'll show you. I've shown this in another video, but I'll show you kind of how it works. So I basically just type in, and again, it's not colorful. You don't really see any program icons or anything like that. Everything so far just has that Debian swirl next to it. But if I'm gonna, like, let's say I'm gonna try to find Kdenlive, so let's go ahead and do a search. I just searched Kden, and we'll see what comes up. And there's Kdenlive right there. So I just click it. I mark it for installation. It's telling me all this other stuff that it's going to install with it. It's just me. I probably shouldn't do this, but I don't read over the list. I just assume that it's necessary, and I really want Kdenlive, so I'm going to go ahead and install everything that's been checked. I'm not going to mess with any of that stuff. So it's checked, and then I just click here to apply, and it's going to tell me what's going to be installed. Bunch of stuff, but there's Kdenlive somewhere in the mix there. So I'm going to go ahead and apply it. And then it gives me my progress bar. So now it's downloading Kdenlive. Kdenlive so far has just been my preferred way to edit videos, even when I'm not doing videos for this line of videos that I have that's kind of focused primarily on Linux. Even now, when I'm editing videos that are just me and my friends shooting stuff that we want to post to YouTube. And I'm going to do it on Linux. It's in Kdenlive. So it's just my preferred video editor. But if you're new to Linux, just like Windows and probably Mac. I'm not a Mac user, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be the one to ask. But probably Mac. There are options. Like you can use one application or the other. There's multiple applications that will allow you to edit and render video files and then upload them to YouTube. So there are multiple applications that you can use within Linux. Kdenlive is just the one that I have the most experience with. It seems to be the one that works best with my workflow. When I was a Windows user, I was using an application called CyberLink Power Director. And I'd used it for a long time, so long that by the time I switched over to Linux, which was just over a year ago, I was still on Power Director 16. I had not switched over to anything more recent. But that's because I produce 1080p videos and I don't do a whole lot of like that application is capable of doing way more to the video, like way more editing and special effects and stuff like that than I would ever touch. So Power Director 16 was more than capable of doing what I needed it to do. And same with Kdenlive. Kdenlive has features that I don't use that, you know, if you were familiar with them and you could incorporate them into your videos, I mean, you could make a full-on production. You could make a video that's like worthy of like commercial release, I guess you could say. But I don't need all of that. So CyberLink Power Director, I stayed on version 16 because it was all I needed, and it was an application that I had to purchase. I purchased CyberLink Power Director. Kdenlive I have not purchased. Now, what I will say is that if you are finding the software useful, it would probably be a good idea to donate to the people who keep that software running, just so you have it available to you and to other people, because that's kind of how something like that survives and continues to be useful for other people. Like I don't think a free project like that could go on forever without getting funds somehow. So it's definitely a good idea that if you have some extra money and you're finding value in something that is free but could benefit from having you donate, that you maybe consider donating. But it's free, and applications like the ones I had moved over from are not free, and they usually want you to buy a version every year, or in many cases now it seems like a lot of applications have moved over to subscription based, which means basically you sign up for like a membership. Think of like a gym membership, or if you're as old as me, think of like having a membership to like a magazine subscription or something like that. Like basically you're kind of locked in and you're paying monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is, endlessly. Well, until you tell it to end, until you tell it I no longer need updates, and in some cases I don't know if you end your subscription, if that just ends your access to that application. That just seems wrong to me, but it does seem like a lot of tech software mostly is kind of moving in that direction. They want you to somehow be subscribed, and I'm just not cool with that. So I like having applications that I can install, and if there's an update or something, great. Like I can choose whether or not I want to get that update. But if the application that I installed in 2016 or whenever that application came out is still functioning for all of the purposes I needed to function for, then why charge me again? If I paid for it once, why continue to charge me if it's doing the same thing it was doing in the past and I don't need it to do anything more? That's just kind of how I feel about it. I do prefer these applications that are free. Obviously, everybody prefers that, but that allow you to donate, so that if you find value out of it, or let's say if you were making videos and you were actually making money off making those videos, to then maybe say, hey, maybe a portion of what I've made, I'm going to give back, just because it's added value to my life. But I'm not trying to be like on a high horse or anything like that. All I'm saying is I'm just saying. Anyway, so this, you just saw me install Kdenlive, right? That's what I installed on here. So I can go ahead, well, I'll click on details. So you'll see like, yep, Kdenlive is on there. And then I can just close out of Synaptec, if it will. Now again, this computer that I'm running everything on is older. So you might see it kind of struggle to keep up with some of the features, although it can. I mean, it's still capable of doing that, and that's what I like about being able to install something like Linux, is that Linux can keep these things, breathing, keep life, flowing to these machines that, let's say if there was no reason to upgrade, if they could just continue working with whatever was available at the time that the machine was produced, that it would just keep functioning, because it would. Linux allows you to kind of do that, to provide additional life to something that would otherwise only be end of life if you were reliant on someone or some corporation business who was only going to provide it with, whatever you needed to have in order to keep using it. This is really long-winded. As long as they saw that it was beneficial to them. Linux kind of allows you to just say, okay, forget those guys who only want to make money off of me. There's a group of people, and in many cases, it's basically just like volunteers, who are contributing to something that's going to give additional life to this, and they're not necessarily doing it to increase profits, make money, whatever. And I can benefit from that. I kind of went sideways with what I was trying to say, but basically, all I'm trying to say is you don't need to dip into your pockets, dip into savings in some cases, and go out and run out and get that, $1,000 plus machine, if you're doing really what I would consider basic tasks. And a lot of people are not shooting, editing, producing videos with their laptops. A lot of people are still accessing the internet, watching YouTube videos, shopping. Do you need a machine that's capable of doing way more than what I'm doing with it in order to do those things? I don't know. I mean, I'm not really going to judge the consumer on what they want. I'm just trying to say to those people who feel like this is a really pricey purchase, is there a way that I could get kind of the same results without having to shell out so much money to do so? And I would say, yeah, this is it. This, what I'm showing you, is kind of that solution. But yeah, I've talked way too long about that. So yeah, we're back on this, and let me go back to the little website here. So we're back on Maple Linux. I don't know if I read much about this, but it's based on Debian stable branch, running the Cinnamon desktop. It does say here it's designed primarily for users located in Canada with specific Canadian defaults. I don't know if I really encountered anything that I would say, oh, this is for Canadian users only. Maybe if I pulled up a virtual keyboard, I don't know. Is their keyboard? No, their keyboard's not different. What am I talking about? Like, of course, their keyboard is the same. The spelling of certain words might be slightly different, but their keyboard is obviously the same. I'm being dumb. Let's see. The distribution ships with both English and Canadian French locales pre-configured and uses CIRA Canadian Shield DNS for privacy-focused malware-blocking DNS servers operated locally. I don't know if that means while I'm using this, some of the traffic is being routed through Canadian servers. That seems a little weird, but possibly. I don't know how deep into like this goes and being connected to like the Canadian government. There's nothing here that words it that way. It just says it's a distribution out of Canada. If I downloaded a distribution that was based in the United States, even though it was like a privately created distribution, my neighbor created it down the street or something like that, has no ties to the U.S. government, it would still say the origin is the United States. So I have no idea if this is like connected to any government agency or anything. My guess would be it's just an individual or a group of individuals in Canada creating a distribution that's a little more like localized in terms of maybe like I said, maybe the way things are spelled, maybe things like temperature, the way things are measured, stuff like that. I don't know. But I haven't encountered anything that looks like crazy different to me. The one thing that I did encounter was that Synaptec package manager, which has nothing to do with the fact that this distribution came from Canada. Synaptec, again, is something that I've used on other distributions, and I find it pretty useful just because it seems to find things that work. And I have no idea if that has something to do with the fact that it's Synaptec, or if I've just been lucky on the versions that have Synaptec, that it just happens to find the versions of software that are going to work with this laptop, and the fact that it's running very old hardware. But I can just tell you my experience has been that it does. It has in the past. It has in the past, and it did this time. Without like presenting some kind of weird error or just simply not working, it did it. It did it on this old machine. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end my video because I've talked way too long. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.